One of the most famous pieces of footage of the last weeks of World War II in Europe is Hitler decorating Hitler Youths for gallantry in the garden of the Reich Chancellery. This film is not actually from the Battle of Berlin, which began on the 16th of April 1945 with the Soviet assault on the Seelow Heights, 100 kilometers east of the city, with the first Red Army troops actually reaching the eastern suburbs of Berlin on the 20th of April, Hitler's 56th and last birthday. Instead, this film was shot on the 20th of March, exactly 1 month previous to that date, and the boys and young men receiving decorations have been helping to defend positions in other areas, the Eastern Front, Germany, and have been invited to meet Hitler in Berlin as part of a propaganda stunt, the footage used in newsreels shown in cinemas across Germany. Another similar ceremony would be held in the Reich Chancellery's Honor Court during the Battle of Berlin on the 20th of April, but it was not filmed. The Iron Crosses and wound badges the boys received on both occasions came from a special medal repository inside the vast Chancellery. Thousands of medals of different types and classes were stored at the Chancellery, and when the fighting ended in early May 1945, the Soviets very thoroughly looted the badly damaged structure, and vast quantities of brand new unissued medals were piled up in ruined rooms or flowed out down steps to courtyards. Just detritus, to join the mountains of papers, broken furniture, smashed sculptures, and all the contents and fittings of what had once been a luxuriously appointed building. Soviet soldiers had little interest in Nazi equipment and decorations. They were interested primarily in jewelry, gold, silver, cash, and any items that would have a practical value back home in the Soviet Union. And aside from some official trophy hunting units carrying off Nazi banners and some of the bronze eagles from the Reich Chancellery, an awful lot of items were left in situ. With the arrival of British, American, and French troops in Berlin in early July 1945 to formally take over their agreed occupation zones in the city, Western soldiers became souvenir hungry, and what better souvenirs than the symbols and accoutrements of the vanquished Nazi state. Naturally, the soldiers gravitated towards the famous buildings most closely associated with Hitler and his government, one of which of course being the Chancellery with its attached Führerbunker, both of which were in the Soviet occupation zone, but it was still possible to travel relatively easily between the zones for some years after the war. The gigantic Reich Chancellery, with its near-endless rooms filled with Nazi detritus, were happy hunting grounds for soldiers searching for free trophies to take home, items that came from the holiest of holies, the Chancellery. Some quite large pieces were taken by Western Allied troops with Soviet permission, and one such is this large bronze eagle found in the dust and rubbish of one of the rooms of the Reich Chancellery, its wings showing obvious battle damage. This trophy is now on display at the Imperial War Museum in London. But for the ordinary soldiers, they could only reasonably take what would fit into their uniform pockets, and German medals and decorations fit the bill perfectly. A few days ago, I was lucky enough to acquire one such German decoration found by a British soldier in the Chancellery, and even better, it came with a letter from the now deceased veteran, written in 1995, explaining exactly how he acquired it. As well as the personal letter, further proof was also this commendation for bravery, dated 1947, issued by the British Army of the Rhine, to this veteran who had been serving in Berlin since 1945. And this is it. An excellent condition, though slightly tarnished by age, War Merit Cross First Class without swords. Created in late 1939 on Hitler's order, the same time as he ordered that the Iron Cross should be resurrected and reissued. It is an award designed to recognize bravery or service in the furtherance of the war effort that fell short of the award of the Iron Cross. Like the Iron Cross, it was awarded in degrees. The lowest level was the War Merit Medal, given to civilians to recognize outstanding service to the war effort. Some 4.9 million were distributed. Next up was the War Merit Cross Second Class, awarded with or without swords. with swords recognized bravery, not directly connected to frontline action, while the medal without swords was issued for service in the furtherance of the war effort. Like the grades of the Iron Cross, you had to have received the lower to get the higher, so the War Merit Cross Second Class was analogous to the Iron Cross Second Class, and was worn as a ribbon through the buttonhole of the tunic, or on the ribbon bar. The medal itself was only worn in full-dress uniform. The next higher grade was the War Merit Cross First Class, analogous to the Iron Cross First Class, and worn in the same manner, pinned to the left breast of the tunic. Next up was the Knight's Cross of the War Merit Cross, analogous to the much more famous Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross. This was worn around the neck, just like the Knight's Cross, but was much, much rarer. Over 7,500 Knight's Crosses were awarded between 1940 and 1945, but only 255 Knight's Cross of the War Merit Cross. Finally, there was the extremely rare highest grade, the Knight's Cross of the War Merit Cross in gold. It was awarded, on paper, only twice, on the 20th of April 1945. So the medal we have here is the War Merit Cross First Class without swords. Some infamous recipients of this award were Reichsleiter Philipp Bühler, Chief of the Chancellery of the Führer, Karl Hunker, Gauleiter of Lower Silesia, and William Joyce, the radio broadcaster known to wartime British audiences as Lord Haw Haw. The story of how this particular cross was found is interesting. The man who found it was the appropriately named Corporal Ernest Pickup, in 1945 serving in an independent maintenance section billeted in Spandau in the British sector of Berlin. A few days after arriving, he and one of his friends, James Callaghan, no relation to the later British Prime Minister, walked over into the Soviet zone. These two British soldiers shared a reaction common to most Western Allied troops sent to Berlin, of witnessing the profound devastation of the city. Quote, "Berlin was devastated. It had to be seen to be believed. We were walking on rubble across Berlin. The roads were blocked for traffic at the time, and bodies were being found daily in the rubble as clearance progressed." End quote. Pickup recalled arriving at a large stone building which had been badly bombed. Though he did not at first realize it, it was the Reich Chancellery. Pickup only realized a little while later, as they began to come across broken notice boards, lettering on broken stonework, scattered leaflets, and so on. Quote, "We scrambled over the debris, tried to climb a mountain of medals, iron crosses, different classes of Air Force medals, various grades, some for women who had 8 children for the party, various ribbons, all for the war effort. I filled my pockets with a variety, was about to leave, observed a flight of stone steps leading down to the ducts or cellars of the Chancellery." End quote. Clambering down the steps, Pickup and Callaghan had entered the Reich Chancellery cellars, used in the battle as shelters and living accommodation for Hitler's wider entourage, specifically for those members of Hitler's staff who worked in the Führer bunker but were not billeted there, and also for the defense sector troops. Pickup thought that he had entered the Führer bunker, but I doubt this, as access to Hitler's bunker at this time was tightly controlled by the Soviet NKVD secret police, who were still investigating Hitler's death. Quote, "It was dark and musty," recalled Pickup, "but it was obvious that people had lived down there recently, as clothing, bedding, temporary sleeping bunks, etc., part-eaten meals, and all the signs of recent occupation were there." End quote. Pickup made an interesting discovery. Quote, "In one of the passages I found a diary belonging to an Albert Bormann, with leading Nazi names and phone numbers with a pencil at the side of it." End quote. Albert Bormann was the younger brother of Hitler's feared private secretary and party minister Martin Bormann, and I've made a video all about him, link in the end screen. Albert Bormann was a general in the NSKK, the National Socialist Motor Corps, and a personal adjutant to Hitler. He also had a terrible relationship with his brother Martin, the two hardly ever speaking. Albert had been among the staff from the Führerbunker evacuated by plane to Bavaria on Hitler's order, beginning on the 20th of April, and survived the war, dying in Munich in 1989 at the age of 86. Pickup didn't rate this find very highly, as his friend had found a book of stamps in mint condition. They were for German-occupied countries, and some were marked for German-occupied Moscow, an event, of course, which had never happened. A week later, Corporal Pickup and his friend tried to enter the Chancellery again, but this time were turned away by Red Army troops. To me, it is fascinating that this medal, picked up amongst the ruins of the Reich Chancellery in 1945, had been present through all the tumult of the Battle of Berlin and the demise of Hitler, subjects often covered on this channel, a silent witness to world-changing events. However, Corporal Pickup's handful of medals that he trawled from the piles of detritus in the Reich Chancellery pales into insignificance in comparison to the medal found by a US soldier around the same time, who was also souvenir hunting at the Chancellery. Larry Hirschbach and his buddy made it to Hitler's destroyed office in July 1945 and watched as Allied soldiers used hammers to smash off chunks of the marble top of Hitler's desk for souvenirs. Rooting around in the floor debris, he found an ink blotter made of the same highly polished marble as Hitler's desk, and also some unused Adolf Hitler stationery that he would use to write to his wife. However, in a charred storage vault in one of the Reich Chancellery cellars, Hirschbach found this German wound badge. Probably one of the rarest Nazi awards. This is the 20th of July wound badge, awarded to officers injured from the bomb attack on Hitler at the Wolf's Lair on the 20th of July 1944. Only 24 were ever awarded. This one, the silver class, was one of many made but not issued, and was stored at the Reich Chancellery at the end of the war. It is usual that many more would have been made than awarded, in case further awards were required, or if a recipient had lost his original badge and a replacement was sought. It's been estimated by experts that around 100 of these 20th of July wound badges were manufactured in black, silver, and gold classes. Very often copied by fakers, this one, like my War Merit Cross First Class, has an unbroken chain of provenance leading back to its discovery in 1945 in the Chancellery. Today this wound badge is on display at the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. If a 20th of July 1944 wound badge could be tied to a particular recipient, it would be worth around $25,000 today. But if not, it's still worth several $1,000s. My much more humble War Merit Cross First Class is nonetheless a fascinating object. You are quite literally holding history in your hand. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share. Also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help to support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.